this recipe is the ultimate mid-week dessert. Bread and butter pudding. I love this recipe and I've also included it in my most recent book, the Weeknight Cookbook. And for the fruit component, I'm going to be adding some Morello cherries. I've drained them and I'm also going to keep the liquid because this is going to be reduced later on for a delicious syrup on top. Now let's get on to the custard. In a pot, I need 600 mils of thickened cream. We'll pop that in. And I want to flavour this up with some lemon zest, the zest of a whole lemon. Loads of flavour in the zest. Nice. And some vanilla. I'm using some vanilla extract, about a teaspoon. And some cinnamon, a good pinch of cinnamon. Okay. I'll just stir that in and incorporate it into the cream and keep an eye on this cream because we just want it to start to boil. Now, while that's heating up, let's get onto the eggs. You can't have a bread and butter pudding without eggs, so I'll need 5 eggs for this recipe. I'm using Sunny Queen free-range eggs. I'm going to separate them, so we need egg whites in one, and we can reserve those for another use. We need the egg yolks for a rich custard, so I'll break these into the bowl and separating them. And second one. And the best thing about bread and butter pudding is how versatile it is. I always remember Dad making this for us in the middle of the week when he had lots of leftover bread. We would get so excited because he'd change it up, change the fruit. Sometimes he would simply use some fresh fruit in summer, just like mangoes would work delightfully too. We'll add that into the bowl and one more egg to go. Okay, now we need to sweeten the egg yolks. I'm going to add half of this caster sugar and I'll reserve the rest for later. So just roughly. And then with a whisk, I'm going to combine this until it's thick and pale. Okay, quite happy with that. So we can add the cream mixture. We'll turn the heat off. And then whenever you're making a custard, you need to constantly whisk the egg and sugar mixture and then consistently pour in the hot liquid. That'll ensure we don't get scrambled eggs. We want a silky smooth custard. Done. Wow, that cinnamon and lemon just smells so good in this. All right, I'm going to allow this to cool slightly. We'll just put it to the side while we get onto the bread component of this pudding. I'm using 1 loaf of brioche bread. I've removed the crust and then cut them into triangles. The drier it is, the better the results are going to be. And you can also use sourdough bread, so whatever you got hanging around, use it, just take the crust off it. This is a 1.5 litre dish that's oven proof, and I've put a generous amount of butter on the base of it. So to start with, we're just going to work around and just match it up, making sure we're not leaving too many gaps. And the rest of this I'm going to butter because it is a bread and butter pudding, so we need lots of butter in it too. And I'll add another one there so it's quite snug. Press it down. This is where we add some of our gorgeous Morello cherries. Just bring that closer. And I'll add half of these to the bread. Now for the rest of the bread, I'm just going to butter it with a butter knife, a generous amount of softened butter on each individual triangle, and then we're going to add that again on top of it and sandwich it together. All right, last piece of buttered brioche. And we're going to squish that in there. It fits perfectly. And now we can completely drown this pudding in this delicious custard. So pour it over. So I'm going to let that sit on one side and then I'll wait 20 minutes, add the rest and let it sit for another hour. And while that's just sitting there, I'll get on to the last little component of this bread and butter pudding. This is the syrup that we were talking about before. It goes into a pot. So nothing goes to waste here. And I'll add the remaining caster sugar. Sugar goes in, and I'll pop the heat on, and I'll allow this to reduce by half or until it's really syrupy. How good does this bread and butter pudding look? It does have a slight wobble in the center, so that's what I'm looking for. And then to finally garnish this, those reserved Morello cherries, we'll pop them over the top for some extra color. Yum, I love these because they're just slightly sour too. And then that syrup that we made, see how thick it is? Now we just pour that over the top. Oh, that is not your average bread and butter pudding. Sort of taking it up a notch. Finally, some icing sugar over the top. Oh, look at that. I'm so excited about this. It has cooled down slightly, so I want to have a taste. Bread and butter pudding. Still piping hot. Pop that on the plate. Slightly gooey in the center, extra icing. How good are weeknight desserts. And to think this is leftover bread, cream and eggs. Just delicious.